Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, and welcome to another Instagram live stream artist chat. We just do this every Tuesday. We spend some time hanging out with some awesome people we know or love out there, creators, makers in our community or the community beyond Torrie region, folks that, just are doing really interesting things and thinking about things in interesting ways and just doing their best to human during very difficult and strange times. I'm Mary Cronert, by the way, from the LivingRoom Community Art Studio. So if you're not familiar with us, we're a charity that, provides opportunities for folks to make and share art for free in the service of community development and individual well-being. So in all the talks we have, well-being will take up a certain amount of space in our chats, and that's okay. We're not experts, we're just human beings, and we're all learning how to human a little bit better, hopefully, every single day, every single moment. So thank you so much for joining us. Today, we are really lucky to be joined by an artist, singer-songwriter, early musician, who's based out of Montreal right now, Torrie. This was a person I only met recently, and they're awesome. They're just awesome. So I'm so happy to introduce them to other folks in our community and kind of believing that this moment, our community is expanding just that little much more. And every time it expands, it gets a little bit better. So without further ado, why don't I invite Ellen on to join this conversation so we can get down to it? Because I have a feeling we're going to be chatting and it's just going to be a lot of wonderful stuff. And we need all the time to chat that we can today. So let's do this. Oh, there we go. Joined by Ellen. I'm going to have a sip of my coffee in the meantime. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, it's so great to see your face again.
You too. How are you?
I'm okay. We're actually having what I would describe as a very Montreal kind of day here today. There is like blizzarding snow, just wind. I look at my window here and I see gusts of snow being blown off the rooftop beside me, and yeah, it just takes me back to Montreal a little bit.
I feel like we're having a very non-Montreal day in that way.
What's it like?
Well, I live right by the St. Lawrence here in Verdun, so it's just sort of below the downtown, right on the river. And every time I go there, it's like wind whipping, but today it's just complete stillness. So I guess you stole it. You stole all the wind today.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So
very fine with me.
I know it's been a strange winter for so many reasons. How are you doing? I know that Montreal's in a little bit of a different kind of state than us folks in Montreal or like Ontario. How are you? How's your heart?
Oh, wow. What a question to start with. My heart is very, very sore for the people who are in much less fortunate positions than me right now.
Yeah.
It's feeling really apocalyptic out there a little bit. I mean, there's really no, the absence of public spaces is just becoming more and more tangible, and it's really weighing on people, especially performers who thrive in those spaces and whose livelihood is in those spaces. So it's sad, but I mean, I'm very lucky to have support, and I live with people who support me and love me, and so I'm very, very lucky in that way. But it's not right. It's not right what's going on, and especially with the curfew and everything, and how it's sort of impacting people without homes the most. That's hurting my heart on a pretty constant basis these days. But in terms of my own personal well-being, I feel very lucky.
Oh, you're lovely. And you know what? We'll return to that because I think we're finding the same thing here. We don't have a curfew, but the pandemic has certainly highlighted the inequities across the board and made things much more difficult for folks for whom it was already difficult, and perhaps a little easier for folks that already had it good. So, and I count myself amongst those who have it pretty good. So, we'll revisit this and especially if you're a performer out there, someone who engages us with an audience as a part of the work you do, this time has been so strange and so difficult. So we'll come back to that. But before we jump right in with that, for folks who aren't familiar with who you are or what you do, would you be able to explain a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure, yeah. Oh, hey, Nybird. How's it going? I guess that's your job. Sorry.
Oh, no. Say hi to folks too.
Okay.
like sometimes I get distracted with the chat and I forget to say hello to folks. Please, I'm sorry. That happens. I'm sorry. I still I'm so glad to everyone who joins us. So welcome everyone. We're here with the lovely artist, Ellen Torrie. Take it away, Ellen. Who are you?
Okay, well, my name is Ellen Torrie. I am an artist and a person, and a singer and a writer. And I live in Montreal, and right now I'm studying medieval, Renaissance, and Baroque music in school. But I also write songs on the acoustic guitar, and I make art, but mostly just for myself. And yeah, I guess those are the main things right now, but I feel like who I am is changing all the time. So that's a bit of a transient question, but that's me. I'm Ellen. Hi.
And you also have a YouTube channel. So right off the top, I'm going to invite people to go find Ellen Torrie's YouTube channel if you haven't already, and listen to some of the fantastic music that you make. Yeah, wow.
Oh, thanks so much.
Can I ask, people who enter into performing arts, it's a very specific kind of creation that involves other people. What was your journey into that field, into music and performing music for folks?
Yeah, it's so funny because I come back to this question a lot. I feel like musicians get asked a lot, like, when did you know that you wanted to sing, or like, when did you realize that was going to be part of your life? And I really can't like pinpoint a time where I thought, oh, music, like it almost was like innate. And like when I found outlets for it, it was just like pieces of who I already was, just kind of like fitting in. But I mean, that's also because I found it really, really early. I joined choirs when I was a little kid, and I grew up with the Anglican Church and the Anglican choral tradition as a really big part of my life. And so I guess that's where I sort of learned music and learned sort of like what like discipline music can sometimes take, I guess. And so
meaning,
sorry?
When you say discipline, what do you mean?
I mean, like if you are a musician and you see your role in the community as like being someone who can communicate with music, I think that does take a discipline and a commitment to practicing music in a way that sort of feels like a second voice to you in a way. Does that make sense?
Interesting. So it sounds like a little bit more than just practice and developing your skills. There's something else there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe earlier in my like journey, I would have said it's scales and learning the canon of repertoire or whatever. But like, I think my experiences, especially studying music therapy, made me realize like how many different ways there are to use music to communicate. And so I think rather than it being like a set of rules that you are really familiar with, it's more like a level of comfortability communicating in it. Does that make sense?
I can relate to that. And it's interesting. I can also relate to when you're talking about the discovery of art. For many of us, it happens many different ways. But for a lot of musicians and actors, I find it's more often like it's astonishing to me anyways, how often it has to do with some kind of faith-based thing in their lives. I'm no longer a religious person. But for me, it was through church as well. It was this idea of singing, of performance, of theatricality, perhaps of ritual, all of these things that I think are important to humans everywhere, regardless of if you have a faith or not. If you believe in a creator or nothing, it's okay. But we do have this sort of hankering to follow ritual and service.
Yeah, that is definitely true. And I would definitely say the same thing about my own relationship to religion. Like I don't know that I would consider myself a religious person at this point, but spirituality is very important to me, and the traditions and the rituals in the Anglican tradition are deeply sacred to me in my own way, I think. So and the music is a huge part of that, obviously. So
and I imagine with early music there is at least in Eurocentric early music, there is this connection to faith, to the sort of religious rituals that happen. Yeah, and that's what I find it fascinating. Like, so you were training to be a music therapist, sort of this calling inside of you, which I can also relate to. I remember on my first day of theater school, I think they asked everyone in the class, you know, what do you want? Like, why are you here? Kind of thing. And everyone had a different reason. Some people wanted to go to Hollywood. Some people wanted to do different things. When it came to me, it was like, this is so naive and also kind of, you know, I don't know. I think I said, I want to change the world. And it was like, really? Seriously? Okay, you want your acting to change the world. All right. I now I can just see the teachers kind of rolling their eyes and, you know, but at the time I think that came from a place of knowing that I was an artist somehow, but knowing that it was more than just being an artist. I wanted to make change somehow. I wanted the art to become more. Um, was that what took you into music therapy? Because it seems like you've had an interesting journey with your art form.
Yeah, I think that was definitely part of it. I mean, I was really young when I did my undergrad. I think I moved to it was very far away. I moved to Nova Scotia from Ontario at 17, or I just turned 18 or something.
Oh,
And
wow.
mostly I was just a kid who like wanted a new adventure, I think. There was some of that in me, definitely. I had always felt like called to heal, and I knew that I had an unusually deep sense of empathy, I think. And
Mm.
so those things seemed to make sense. And I also didn't have a lot of confidence in my ability as a performer at that point in my life. To be honest, I thought I'm never going to make it, so I might as well do something that's a little more obviously altruistic or serving of my community, something that will actually change the world or something, you know? And then throughout my undergrad, I mean, I loved learning about music therapy, but like the call to perform and like be an artist, outside of the clinical model of music therapy. And I know that you have interesting stuff to say about that, having a background in art therapy.
Oh, we can talk. We can talk.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. But I just realized that actually it was a moment in performance class, because I was still required to take performance classes. And but I thought it was selfish to want to perform because it's not really helping people or something. And so in a performance class, I performed one day, and one of the staff piano accompanists came up to me at the end, and she'd never spoken to me. And she said, you know, I just want to thank you every day. I hear you in performance class, and it makes me feel healed. And she was having some problems with her family. There was illness in her family, and she was having a really hard year. And so I had no idea that my music was making a difference for her in a positive way. And so that was sort of a really big moment of realization for me that it can be just as healing to like be in your element and communicating in a way that feels like you, and still make a huge impact, and still, you know, like change your world, at least change the community around you, and yeah, make it better somehow.
And I love that, like that recognition at, especially at that age for you. I mean, it's that insight into starting where you're at, start with yourself, and then see what happens from that. I think I like to think that artists have that, a sense of that intrinsically, but maybe we don't. Maybe not everyone does, but that's a beautiful thing to recognize. When you recognize that and you realized, okay, like what was the journey from recognizing that and then going back to school again? What was that like?
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I stuck out my music therapy degree. I was enjoying it, but I knew
Yeah.
that it wasn't where I was really going, like in an immediate kind of way. But everything I learned like helped me to understand like the kind of performer I wanted to be.
Mhm.
So I did a lot of like young artist programs like outside of school, like over the summer and stuff. I went abroad and I did an opera program that changed my life and was like, okay, there's no way I can't do this for my life, you know. And so then I graduated and I auditioned for the McGill Early Music Program right away, and I didn't get in. So I stayed in Montreal. I just kind of like learned how to be a person not in school for the first time. I auditioned again. I didn't get in. And then, you know, after 2 years of sort of really listening to what it is that I wanted, I auditioned for the early music program rather than the opera program. And I found a mentor who sort of believed in me and like was part of that world and opened a lot of doors for me, for which I'm forever grateful. And then, yeah, just this last September, I started my master's degree in early music. So I guess, yeah, that was sort of the timeline. I don't know if that really answers the question, but
I feel like I don't know why today I'm really grilling you. I'm like, tell me every step in your life's journey, please. Because, well, completely selfishly, music and being able to sing is something that, I mean, I took music in school. I passed my singing classes, but it's never, I feel confident in, and I wish I could. I love it. And I think there's so many people out there who recognize, and like every one of us, I think, benefits from having music in our lives, whether we perform it or simply appreciate it.
Yeah.
It is that universal language that I think all artists, reach for, and all people reach for in like in all aspects of life, when we're grieving, when we're celebrating, when we're relaxing, when we're, so maybe I'm a bit jealous. Maybe I'm just trying to I want inside your head.
Well, it's true that, I mean, I think music therapy was a really good sort of foundation to build from in that way, because it did sort of deconstruct my ideas of like, what's a good musician? Like who gets to make music? And it became very obvious that like my ideas about that were rooted in some sort of like hierarchy of supremacy or something, and I started working with people who'd never picked up a guitar, who didn't know a scale, but yet taught me something in the music all the time. So I'm especially with early music and classical music. I don't speak for everyone, obviously, but I do feel like there can be a lot of gatekeeping that goes on, and that's why a lot of people don't know about it, because it's not very accessible. And so I hope that with that perspective, at least in the work I do, I can make it more accessible and make people feel like everybody belongs in that music. And yeah, it's supposed to be for everybody. And yeah.
If you could, can we talk a little bit more about exactly what early music is? And I realize that I imagine that must be changing right now, because when I think of early music, I think of something very European, very sort of faith-based. And I know that it must be larger than that, obviously. And I think that, is that what you mean when you're talking about gatekeeping to a certain extent?
Yeah. I think right now in the profession, there's more than ever, there's a call to expand our ideas of what early music really means. I mean, quite simply, early music just means music from before 1750. Obviously, there's a huge focus on Eurocentric music from 1750 and before, music of white European people from 1750. It's a small canon, and I think it's important that right now we're retracing our steps just to see whose stories were left behind in the process of defining this genre. And so that's the real work right now in this field, I think, is, and a lot of what we do comes from reconstructing what we read in the treatises of that time. So people who are well known in the profession, usually wealthy people, would write these big tomes about this note is supposed to be sung just like this, or you have to have this kind of agility in this line. And like a lot of the work in early music is, how can we reconstruct that? And I think that's really cool, but I also think that going beyond the treatise and moving towards interpretation of the music rather than a reconstruction is going to make more space, because the treatise doesn't represent the entire population at that time. I mean, maybe there were groups and communities in other places that were performing this music completely differently and had no means or no desire to record what they were doing. So I think, and I certainly don't speak for the entire early music movement when I talk about this, but I think that's what we're on the precipice of, I'm hoping. And so, yeah, redefining what that means. I know that there's been some work incorporating early spirituals and slave songs into the genre of early music. And so that's one tangible step that's being taken, but it's just an example of what we could be doing to sort of open that up to people and make it feel like it belongs to them too.
Yes, please. And learning more about what early music is as yet, I'm going to say undiscovered, but obviously it's not undiscovered. It's just undiscovered within colonizer culture. Like there's still so much space for music to fill, and with voices that perhaps we haven't heard before or haven't heard much of, as much as we could before. It's interesting because it reminds me of conversations that are happening in other areas of fine art or classical art as well. For example, I know in theater, there's a lot of conversations regarding, you know, kind of the hits of theater when we think about it, the kind of stuff you know, we all might be made to study in school, like Shakespeare or Shaw, or, you know, beautiful writers telling like interesting stories about other humans. But again, like why is it relevant? You know, why is, you know, and what can we do to, you know, instead of just preserving it in aspect, what can we do to bring it to life? And who gets to make the choices about what that life looks like? You, like when you're talking, it sounds like there's some interesting conversations in the early music community.
Yeah, I'm trying to be careful, but yeah, I think there's some tension right now because people don't like change, and it's hard to, especially, I mean, our generation has had the privilege of, I mean, obviously social media is very problematic in a lot of ways, but it does mean that we have access to information like never before. We have the time to sit down and read something that expands our minds in that way, and learn from people that aren't necessarily in our culture or circles. And so we have a huge advantage in that way, to start making changes and to start asking some critical questions. But I think that definitely hasn't been the historical attitude. And so I think there's a lot of movement in the student population to start sort of like critically evaluating what it is we're doing here.
Good.
And yeah, so the people that are a little bit more embedded in those power structures are having a hard time like knowing where they fit into that, I think is maybe the problem.
And I think so too. That interesting, like it's an interesting conversation that we're being forced to, hopefully not forced to, but confronted with, in case if we haven't thought about it before, that idea of, I guess, confronting our own egos, like speaking for someone like myself, like a white cisgendered settler, like where, like what's, you know, like it can, you know, there's all sorts of questions that come up, like everything I've learned, I have to, oh man, I have to change it now. Like it's this really ridiculous sort of thing of, you know, it's a little bit of work, a little bit of opening our brains up to make so much more possible. And yet, yeah, for folks who maybe rely on these avenues, like maybe teachers, maybe people within academia, maybe people who've made livings off of only ever performing things in a certain way for certain audiences.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I can see how it feels.
Sorry?
I can see how it feels like a risk, but
yeah. I think that it's a really fine line right now, because obviously like the institution wants to prepare you for what kind of career you're going to have. And so up until now, it's been true that learning Eurocentric music means that you'll get, you know, more gigs, because that's what's being recognized as the only kind of music that you can play from before 1750. And so as we are expanding our idea of that, our education should reflect that, we think. And so I just think that the transition is rocky for sure, and it's slow. Yeah, but I think as long as there's there's an openness and a willingness to ask questions and a willingness to change your mind when given new information, I think are sort of the crucial points. That's where the change can happen.
And recognizing how exciting it is to have new stories being told by new voices in the community, regardless of what like artistic modality it's coming from.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I mean, in practice, it is amazing to see, like from even like, you know, even in this past year, there's been projects that I never thought I would see that are incredible in that way, and highlighting new stories, you know. And yeah, it is a different thing, but it's better.
You were mentioning, and I think I'll share this after the live stream as well. You sent me a link. Can you tell me about it's not a project you were involved in, so, but it's I
just love to hype it up.
Could you tell, like, share a little bit about that, because it sounds amazing.
Yeah. So there's a company in Alberta, I believe. It's an Indigenous-led film company called Against the Grain Theatre. And so for a bit of context, if people aren't familiar with the piece Handel's Messiah, it's about a 2-hour choral piece with soloists in between. And it's traditional in the Christian church for a choir to perform this around Christmas. And people will come, and sometimes it's a Messiah sing-along. Like, that's how popular it is. People know the whole thing. And so it's a very, it's a a tradition of being of the Christian church. So what Against the Grain Theater did this year is like a video production of Handel's Messiah, featuring soloists of color and Indigenous soloists and immigrant Canadian immigrant soloists, and each one has like a visual component to like tell the story of like who they are and how they fit into the like fabric of the land that we find ourselves on. And so they even translated some of the Handel pieces into Cree, and like changed some of the words to make it a bit more inclusive to like ideas of the creator. And so it's just a really special thing to see, and you can tell that, you know, nothing is compromised regarding the integrity of the music. You know, it's just an opening up to different perspectives and new ways to tell the story. And I just think it's incredible. It's called Messiah Complex. It's very clever.
So I'll share that. I'm going to share that after our chat over on our Facebook page. I'll put a link up for that. Thank you for sharing me and us. It's amazing. And as long as like we're on the subject of ego, I think we can't talk about being a performer and living in a pandemic without recognizing the fact that so many artists who rely on audiences are without audiences, and without that special thing that a live audience provides. I'm amazed by how resilient people are and how resourceful everyone has been with moving things online, that a company like that would take Messiah and bring it to folks through this other medium. But again, maybe it's not the same as a live performance, is it?
No. And I mean, yes, it's obviously it's devastating to be a performer right now when you're used to creating your craft in a room with people whose energy you can use to inform your performance. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about being a performer.
Yeah.
But I do think that something like the Messiah Complex might not have happened in the same way. Had we been able to be in the same room and occupy the more traditional forms of singing.
Really?
Well, maybe we wouldn't have had the attention that it got. I mean, it was like people from across the entire country were watching it together. And I'm just not sure that it would have, I mean, obviously it would have been a very impactful thing either way, but because like a virtual platform is all we have right now, like I think that the impact it made was maybe strengthened by, for one, like the ability to access it, just on YouTube with a link, whatever. Like it's a lot easier than, paying $50 and going into a church. Like that's not comfortable for everyone. I was going to say one more thing. And maybe the ability to like introspect in the privacy of your own home. Like, oh, like, what do I think about this? Like, what does that say about my internal biases? Like to actually have space to reflect on, because it's a very powerful piece of art. And so maybe like having the space and the solitude to really take it in was important as well. That's
fantastic. And it's interesting. It's really interesting. We're finding a similar thing with LivingRoom. A lot of the feedback about the live streams and things we've been doing is, that there's a certain level of comfort that maybe people didn't feel with having to show up in person before. Like there are some folks who will always be comfortable being in the room with others, and they want that and they need that. But this is also, it's like opened up opportunities for folks who are perhaps a little more introverted or deal with different issues that perhaps prevent them from getting out as easily. Exactly. It's given them an opportunity to connect and to absorb and to participate in ways. So have you found the same thing with your music? Because I know you've been doing some live streams and like virtual performances as well. Yeah. I do think that it's raising a really important question of accessibility and like, why weren't we making these accommodations before to people who maybe are not able to be there in person for various accessibility issues? Like I noticed I sing at an Anglican church here. So they took their services on Zoom last March, and they haven't stopped with the Zoom service. It just hasn't been feasible to do in-person services. Yeah. But I've met and seen people joining the service who I've never seen before, who have been part of the congregation for maybe 50 years, but haven't been physically to a church service in several because of their own accessibility issues. So it's actually kind of cool to see it opening up in that way.
but yeah, I also found, because I did a 15-week singer-songwriter live stream show on Facebook at the beginning of the pandemic. And so I invited singer-songwriters from all across Canada that I knew to perform each week. There was 3 each week. And it meant that I got to put together sets of performers that maybe would never have been in the same room together, you know, from opposite ends of the country, and people I hadn't seen in years, and hadn't had the opportunity to make music with in years. So in that way, it was a really positive thing.
Do you find what for you, what do you feel is different? And maybe this is an impossible question to ask, but what's different about the virtual audience and the live audience? How does it impact or change the way you perform and engage with people?
Oh, yeah, it's tough. I gotta say, if you want my honest answer, it's not. Absolutely. Yeah. It's really not the same. It's singing to your computer in an empty room doesn't feel nice to me. It doesn't. Yeah, it's just not the same as I really do feel like an audience projects an energy that is part of the performance. And so, oh, it's my mom popping up with a.
She's got a good
plug grief stories. Okay.
Put a pin in. We'll come back to that. We'll come back.
Yes. What was I saying?
Singing to your computer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't find it fulfilling. I find it to be something else. I do feel like I got a lot of joy seeing people sort of like communicating in the comment section, and like getting a sense that people really were sort of together in a virtual sense.
Yeah.
But I don't find it to be like a replacement for performing. I just find it to be like a different thing. That's not necessarily bad, but like, it's different. It's a completely different experience as a performer, and probably as an audience member too.
I think so as well. I don't think, I think as we grow out of this weird and strange and difficult time, I imagine we'll be keeping both avenues. I think that the virtual performance will remain, but I think there is something special about coming together with other humans, being in, like, sharing space and sharing the experience.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because maybe it isn't as safe or comfortable as being at home in your pajamas, being able to listen or watch something. Yeah. It does demand something, it's an interesting exchange that happens with a live audience in that way.
Yeah. The spontaneity and the risk, I think, is greater, and it means a more dynamic performance and a less predictable one, maybe.
Yeah, and I think too, there's something beautiful for the audience in that, knowing that, although no one ever tells you this as an audience member, no one trains you how to be a part of an audience. Yeah, good thing. But I love. There's something like it involves you, and depending for folks who don't or haven't had that experience of performing to live audiences before, there is this sense of like every show, performance, concert is different depending on who's in that audience, the kind of energy they bring into the space, the kind of energy that's in the community that's brought into the space on any night or day or whatever. There's something really exceptional, like extraordinary there, and it asks you to be a part of it, just the way you focus and, or aren't able to focus. Yeah. Like it's a relationship that's being built. And I think there's a lot of folks out there who are missing that relationship right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so funny because I guess I never really thought about it this way, but it's like we're able to invite more people into maybe like the world, but it's not the same relationship that we're used to having. So it's like a catch-22 a little bit. Like, yes, it's more accessible, but it's a completely different experience. So
different.
I mean, after all of this, and of course, like virtual platforms will still exist, and I'm sure that we'll be using them a lot more. But after. In the after, hopefully there will be, a greater engagement and an expanding of that community, so that people can experience what it's like to have a relationship as an audience member with a performer in real time.
I'm really curious about that as well. I'm curious if we'll see more people going out to events, to concerts, to theater, I wonder if we'll see a boost in that once things are done, a new appreciation.
Yeah. I hope so. I mean, one of the things that we that became important to my colleagues and I at the beginning of the pandemic was like outreach in that way, like not necessarily virtually, but like how could we reach the people that wouldn't necessarily find themselves in a concert hall?
Yeah.
And so that became like the alleyways of the neighborhood I live in right here. So we went and we performed music in the alleyways of like the lower income neighborhoods of Montreal. And it was fascinating because it was, for one thing, I mean, it was the first live performance that I was able to be a part of in almost a year now. But it was for, you know, like 3 or 4 people at a time. And you really got a sense of that relationship, obviously, when it's such a small audience. And so that was like a really beautiful experience. And it's a way to do accessibility without technology too, which is sometimes, important to consider.
Well, at the very beginning of this conversation, you were touching upon that briefly, like the inequities that have been highlighted. And one of them for me, for the living room, has been just the inequity within technology and access to technology. Not everyone has a great data plan. Not everyone has reliable Wi-Fi. Not everyone has a smartphone or device that lets them record or be seen. And that has been really difficult for us. There's a large part of the community that we used to see in person that we've lost contact with. But I love that idea that you're, welcome everybody. Welcome to everyone who's tuning in now. We're missing that community connection because we can't see people in person, but we still need to be safe. So yeah, that extraordinary idea of tuning in, like being able to drop into neighborhoods in small ways for small groups of people. I love that idea. And
yeah, I hope that some iteration of that can exist for you and the art studio, maybe come better weather. Do you have any like ideas? Works? You don't have to give anything away, but I'm curious.
We're working on it. We are working on it. And there's some lovely announcements coming everyone's way soon. But the new plan we have will help us go out to meet communities. So rather than having communities come to us in the one space, we will be taking our space out into the community. So that's what I'll say right now, folks. A little teaser for you. So hopefully,
here first.
Hopefully that will be ready to go, ready to hit the road. Like early mid to late spring, we're hoping, knock on wood. But again, like it's strange times. You got to roll, sort of go with the flow. So
yeah, it's hard to actually plan anything in a future that you can't see.
yeah. But we do our best. We do our best. Yeah. I want to return to I think your mom's question. What was that? So the grief project, or is there something involving?
Yeah, so actually my mom also is on the board for Grief Stories. So a little bit of a selfish ask, but no, it's an amazing project, and I'm really happy to talk about it. It's an online resource that is dedicated to helping people struggling with grief, and the idea is that, like, in the throes of grief, like maybe it's 3 a.m. and you need some connection, and you don't have, the mental facilities to go through an article about grief or read a million pages. You just want something a little more visceral. You want another human looking at you. And so the idea is that it's a canon of video interviews with people who have either experienced grief, or spiritual directors who have worked with grieving people, mental health counselors, just people working around grief or with personal experience. And so it's just personal interviews about grief. And so the result is that, you can go and you can find someone hopefully that looks like you, that has the same experience in some ways as you, and feel a little less alone in that. So that's I've been really happy to work on that. And I've been conducting interviews with people for content for the website. So
wow.
Yeah.
That sounds so beautiful and so extraordinary. Yes, absolutely. So is it ongoing? Are you still inviting people to participate?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you have a grief experience that you want to share, we are always looking for interview content, and we'd love to talk to you. So yeah, we're always looking to expand, the diversity of the website and the kinds of people that we interview and the kinds of experiences that we include. So yeah, anybody is welcome.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah. If you can share the link or share the contact info with me, I'll share it with the public.
Sure. I'm going to put the link. It used to be in my Instagram bio, but then I thought of some clever joke and I replaced it. A good joke. I'll put it back. Oh yeah. And there's a music and an art pillar that we are working on developing. So art therapy and grief and music therapy and grief. So that's
beautiful. Cool. Thank you, Special K67. Thanks.
Thanks, Special K. You can take a seat. We appreciate you.
But especially during this time, I think that's one of the things that so many of us are struggling with. And there are so many different kinds of grief, and grief impacts everyone in such an extraordinarily different way. And it's interesting that 3 a.m. That 3 a.m. moment. I think anyone who has been touched by loss knows that 3 a.m. moment.
Yeah.
So having an opportunity to reach out to see someone, to know you're not alone, it's a beautiful thing. And art and music do that. I think art and music, without necessarily having to use words, can, speak so clearly to people, touch someone's heart in ways that other things can't.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like finding music by other people that speaks to your experience, maybe gives you the tools to articulate what you couldn't before inside yourself, is just like one of the most magical things, I think.
Well, I know you mentioned yesterday that you might be up to sharing some music with us. Are you?
We do that. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Hey.
First, I just wanted to show you an instrument because I can't play it very well yet, so I'm not going to play you anything on it.
Okay.
But it's a Baroque instrument. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Is the Baroque guitar. And I know, what? And you can see the rose is very, very intricate, and that's a feature of these period instruments.
Oh, the hearts! Look at all the hearts. There's so many hearts happening.
You can tell there's some early music nerds watching. But yeah, I actually can't really play it that well yet, so I don't want this to be your first experience of early music. But just so you know, this is a Baroque guitar. It's sort of tuned like, for all the music nerds out there, it's tuned like a regular guitar almost, except there's no low E. So it's just A, E, D, G, A, D, G, B, E. Just like a regular guitar, except they're all doubled. And traditionally the strings are made of gut, which is kind of creepy, but it makes for a really warm sound that's quite different from the sort of twangy, like acoustic sound that we're used to.
Hey.
And I don't know how to tune it yet because there is 9 strings and that's a lot.
I'm excited. You keep us posted. Perhaps there's another performance.
Perhaps, yeah. I'll keep you updated for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, what?
Does it tune like a 12? Jay King Baskin, who's a
honestly
music in our community.
Oh, cool. Hi, Donald. I don't know because I've never owned a 12-string, but it is. It depends on the guitar. Some of the strings are doubled in octaves, so like they're 8 notes apart, but it's the same note, like C to C, for instance. But some of them are tuned in unison, so it's the exact same note. So I don't know about 12 strings. I think all the strings are tuned in unison doubles, like C, C, A, whatever. So I don't know, is my answer.
Well, you know what, Don? Great question. We can do some research. You can help us. Help us with the research, Don.
Yes, I must know now. Okay, you can't really see my guitar, but I'm gonna try and fix that.
Okay.
Okay, can you kind of see it?
We can kind of see it, yeah. It's all good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'll just play like one verse and a chorus maybe, because we don't have that much time. But this is a song that I wrote in when I was halfway through my music therapy undergrad. I took a road trip with my roommate from Nova Scotia to BC in the car.
That's a big road trip.
That was a fun summer. And I don't know if anybody's ever driven through Ontario, but it's like really big. Mm-hmm. And it's like way more hours in the car than I thought. So I just started writing this song to pass the time and incorporating as many names of cool road signs that I saw along the way. So that's it really. And it's called Blackwater after Blackwater Road in Western Ontario. Mm. She waits in black water under whispering pines. They sing, girl, you might keep track, but you can't take hold of time. She walks under coral skies before the world wakes up. The birds sing, girl, you might inspect your soul, but you can't change what it's made of. She already knows these things. She grew up so fast. That's why she beats the sun to rise. She's trying to make it last.
Oh, wow. Okay. That was too beautiful.
Oh, well, thanks.
It was too beautiful. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I'm a little rusty. It's been a while since I've played that kind of music. I've been sort of in the Renaissance world. It's definitely a different kind of thing. Different style.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, I'm going to share that. I know that's on your YouTube page as well, yes?
I don't know, actually. It might not be. It's on Spotify and it's on SoundCloud.
Okay, we'll have to share all the links after on our Facebook page for sure.
Okay.
Something just happened to me there. I feel like, again, the beautifulness of music, but it also reminded me like in the studio space when it was open, we used to have so much music there. We had a piano, we had guitars, we had some ukulele. I think Nybird has the ukulele right now. It's fostering our ukulele. And the guitars are being fostered by folks, and the piano is at our MPP's office waiting for us to have a new space.
Oh, wow.
Yep, the compliments and the hearts are pouring in for you. But I think that was so powerful because I think I've been missing that, the live voice and the live instrument. And there's something that's so beautiful. Thank you.
Well, thank you for giving me an opportunity to. Oh, Kate says it is in fact on YouTube. I didn't know.
Check it out, people.
There we go.
But yeah, we need to have some music in our art hive again, our virtual hive.
Yeah.
More music.
Absolutely. I think also, we're in the winter now and it's the middle of the winter, and this is normally a time when people would sort of feel a little bit isolated anyway. And so that's hard. But I think maybe as the weather gets nicer, we can start to imagine more possibilities of live music in a safe way, maybe outside and, busking or music to the alleyways. Like I said, it's there's lots of possibilities.
That was beautiful. Really.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, see, there you go. Needed that song. Dawn needed that song.
Please, that's so nice.
Yeah, music does something that, yeah. Yay, music.
Honestly. It's the best.
And that self-care piece again, like we were talking a little bit about this yesterday, and like self-care is a word that's thrown around so easily these days, but it's hard work taking care of ourselves. Um, I know we're coming to the end of our chat, so I don't want to open up anything too big. We'll have to have another part 2 chat for that maybe. But is there anything, I mean, do you have anything you'd like to share with the community just on that note, on like art, creativity, creative wellness, being human, the art of humaning during these days?
Oh, those are big questions. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the art of wellness, I think it's funny because, and this is so cliche, like I don't know that other artists would even feel this way, but I really do feel like performing is like a big part of my self-care. Like it makes me feel like me, and like it makes me feel whole in some sense to share like my music in a room, and so I mean it's hard to really talk about self-care when I feel like I don't really have everything I need right now, to be me, and that's true of a lot of people. So with that aside, I think I've been thinking a lot about self-care, in case you asked, because it's something that I struggle with, and it's something I don't really know how to talk about yet. But I think what I do know is that it's something that is being seen as maybe like a reactionary measure these days, rather than like a preventative one. You know, like take a bath if you're stressed, and like that's very true, and that's a nice thing to do for yourself. But you know, some of the harder self-care doesn't look good as an Instagram infographic. Like it's doing the dishes, it's making a really hard phone call, or setting a boundary with someone that you care about. And those things don't feel good, but they're for your self-care. Yeah. And so I've been trying to see self-care as more of a preventative measure, rather than a now I'm in a state where I need to escape, and I need to care for that. So I think yeah, just like doing the hard stuff when you can. And I know that that's not always possible. Things are beyond our control more than ever. So I mean, if you're struggling with that, you're certainly not alone. But you know, there's always community, and now more than ever, it's accessible to you. Hopefully, I hope that for everybody watching.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for the honesty. It's not a Pinterest post. So
yeah, it's not always a face mask.
Yeah. Oh God, only it was. Could you imagine?
Yeah, that'd be great. Just fix everything.
Right? No, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today.
You too. It's quite like meeting a celebrity, I must say.
What?
Because, well, I've just been enjoying your content so much in the living room, and I have so much respect for what you do, and I felt a little bit like a creepy onlooker for a while, and now to like be a part of the conversation with you, and to hear your ideas and to share mine has been just like such a special thing. So like, thank you so much for that.
Oh gosh. Oh, thank you for being here. This is nothing. It's just me talking to myself in a room, really, without any.
Well, without you, I would be talking to myself also. So.
Well, I have a feeling that this will be, oh, lovely. See, lots of love, lots of hearts coming at you. Lots of hearts coming at you.
So nice. Hearts back. How do I do it? Hold on.
I have a feeling that this first conversation of many, I have a feeling that this might be the first, I don't know, the first performance maybe of many. Maybe we can figure out a way to help that happen.
I certainly hope so. Yes, I hope this is not the last time that we collaborate on something. I think there's a wealth that we've struck here that we should explore.
And we haven't even begun talking about the creative art therapies and, you know, like the insights and discoveries in the work of decolonizing it. Like that's a whole other thing we could have a chat about.
Like at least another hour.
Yeah. But Instagram only. Yeah. A weekend. It will be okay. Yeah, no. Instagram only allows us an hour. So I will let you go for now.
Okay.
Again,
thank you so much for having me, and it was so nice to meet some new people here in the comments, and I will continue to be watching. So
yes, excellent. We'll see you soon, okay?
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye. Oh, wow. Wow, wasn't that lovely? Everybody, thank you so much for being, oh, I have a little spinny wheel happening here. A little spinny wheel. Oh, technology. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of our chat. Thank you so much to Ellen, Torrie, for joining us and sharing her heart, her work, her music, all of the wonderfulness. Yes, we'll be seeing Ellen again soon, I'm sure. Please, if you haven't already done so, go subscribe to her YouTube channel and check out her music and find her on Spotify, on all the things. And we'll post links to that over on our Facebook page as well. But in the meantime, thanks again to everyone who is out there doing the difficult, the hard work of taking care of yourself. You are appreciated. You are not alone in all of this. Even though you might be on your own, you are definitely not alone. Please know that. And you know what? If you'd like to come back and participate in some living room stuff, we do have our virtual art hive, our pop-up art hive happening tomorrow on Facebook, starting at 2 p.m. and running till 3:30 p.m. You're more than welcome to drop on by, listen, watch, make some art with us, chat with other community members. Whatever you need to help you have your best day, we'll be there. And until we can connect and create with one another again in person, I truly look forward to connecting with you right here online. Thanks for being out there. Thanks for being you. Take care of yourself, stay safe, and connect with you soon. Bye, everyone.